Aries rising moon or sun 2025. Aries this year is very important for us because so many planets will be activating Aries. It's almost like a new beginning, new chapter in your life for many Aries, especially for the earlier born Aries. They would feel kind of a reborn, reset, restart, a totally new direction. The earlier born Aries, maybe those born the more towards March, the end of March, or those who have this ascendant or moon in the first 10 degrees, there'll definitely be a year that starts turning their life around. But later Aries will also feel this activation, even though the exact activation is a bit further away from the later degrees, like I'm a later Aries sun. But they'll start, it's like, imagine a sign is like a room. And on that room, or imagine it like a spider web. And even if you're at one end of the spider web and a planet just enters from the other end of the spider web and it's not close to you, but it's moving and the spider web is moving and you're feeling it as well, because something is activating your sign, the spider web. Or if you take it as a room, you're at one end of the room, someone enters the other end of the room. Okay, you can't hear them well still, but imagine they're smoking a cigarette or whatever. The smoke will reach to you as well. So even if you're the later Aries, you'll start feeling this new activations, these new feelings, this new kind of developments. And why is Aries so powerfully activated? First of all, Mercury and Venus will be retrograde at the same time in April. That will be very pivotal time for you, March and April, especially March when they start getting retrograde in Aries. In the first 10 degrees again, those first 10 degrees are epochal this year. They get activated by everything. And then Saturn and Neptune enter Aries this year. I mean, I don't know what to say. So pay attention to those when I'll do it month by month because I don't want to spread it out. But the most important thing you have to pay attention to as Aries is this Mercury Venus retrograde that's happening in Aries, March, April, and Saturn moving into for just 3 months into Aries. Again, very early Aries will feel it the most. And Neptune entering for 3 or 4 months again into Aries. So when I reach those points, so look them up in the description, in the below, and get to them, because that will be the most pivotal information, but everything else will activate. Let's start month by month, yeah? So we have some consistency. So January starts with Mars still being retrograde. Mars turns retrograde in 2024 in December in Leo, and Mars the first few days of January is still in Leo. Where is Aries? Just a second. So we do it like that. This is the beginning. Your Aries here. Mars kind of retrograde a bit in your 5th house, opposition Pluto. So the beginning, the end of December 2024, the beginning of January. There might be some situations with children, with love life, with romantic relationships that are more tense. There is this that they need changing, which is Pluto transformation, that there might be some crisis you need to work on there. It might be with romantic relationship, with creative projects, with children. But most of the time in January and February, Mars will just move right at the beginning of January into Cancer and be retrograde into your 4th house. So the biggest work you have to do during the first 2 months of the year, and those are trends that probably you start seeing them from October, November 2024, and they continue in their most intense in January, February, are with this Mars in your 4th house from ascendant or moon or sun for this matter. And especially those areas that are from 16, let's say from 15 till 30 degrees. So the second half of Aries, 15 till 30 degrees, because Mars gets to 17 degrees, becomes stationary in February 23rd or something, and starts moving forward again. So I give it 3 degrees orb. So the last 15 degrees of Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising will feel this Mars retrograde in January and February in their 4th house, the strongest. They're dealing with a lot of maybe fixing something around home, maybe changing something about real estate, maybe dealing with some matters regarding real estate. Some of you might around this time be and it might be under pressure in some way, or having to repair something at home, having to redo some job at home, or having to sell and buy, sometimes with Mars there, because it's like moving. You are Mars. Remember, wherever Mars goes, Aries feels it so much. It's going to be the first 2 months of the year in this Cancer energy. So a lot of property, family matters on your mind, extended family interactions with parents. And of course, because it's Mars, it might be tense. Some of you that already have some underlying problems with in your relationships with mother, father, or other extended family, it might be a period when Mars wants you to correct this, or even sometimes Mars, wants you to improve that area, but it can escalate. Like if you start especially earlier, getting into problems with them in 2024, towards the end of 2024, this might be the period where it's a bit, where something has to be worked out there. There can be also some situation where you have to be doing something together with family, something that requires mobilizing your energy together, being more tactical, planning more carefully as well, because Mars is where does your energy goes. And when it's retrograde, Mars is much closer to Earth. So it's much more Mars-like. It's much more, but more in the most scorpionic way, because it's retrograde. So you need to be strategic to plan something about family, something, for example, we might be moving across continents, meals and areas. I hope it's not that I'm fighting with my family, but sometimes this is also part of the situation, repairing, changing something around home and so on. With real estate, parenting and your parents as well, Mars there. Sometimes can be some crisis situation you have to deal with, something to correct, to improve again. And if it's not viable anymore, it might be that even it disrupts the relationships with a relative, with a family member, or that there is something there that you need to help them and put all your energy, mobilize yourself in helping mother, father, or it's your parenting style as well. Maybe Mars wants you to re-examine it. How are you a guardian of your home? Not only if you have, it might be if you have pets, if you have property, if you have real estate, you might change something in regards how you do stuff there, or be required to do some important work. Or when it comes to children, your parenting style, changing something there, maybe being more hands-on, which is kind of Mars energy. But because Mars is turning retrograde, you're re-examining those things, thinking, is there a different way to do it? Say maybe you've been trying to sell real estate, Mars is retrograde, then you're like, maybe I need to upgrade it a bit because there might be some delays with buying or selling of a house, because Mars retrograde wants you to do things a bit more differently, alternatively. Maybe there is a different way to do it, to deal with a property problem, with a relationship between you and parents, relationships between you and children. Maybe you're preparing for nesting, Mars there, like doing renovations, repairs, and because it's retrograde, it just maybe you plan that you'll do this house like this or this room, but you have to change now because of some unforeseen circumstances. But ultimately, it will be for the best. But it just might be frustrating in the hot of it, that like, okay, I have to change now the plan and do it differently. I thought it's gonna go through this cell, or we had those plans with my family, and we were gonna go here or do that, but now we have to revise those plans and change the plan somehow. But keep in mind, the universe has always got a plan, and that even if something, if you're not on the right track, it will, during this Mars retrograde in your fourth house, anything connected to home, property, place of living, parenting, all of those things will be corrected. So it puts you on a better path with those matters, even if it's frustrating. But these are some of the important tasks you can do. You might have a project together with your family that you're all doing together, that you're joining forces, for example, concentrating your efforts on some mutual project as well. It can also be connected somehow about putting efforts into financing or refinancing a home, because Mars also rules your 8th house of money coming from others, loans, bank loans, and so on, and goes in the 4th house of real estate, or getting real estate, something with money and real estate as well in some way. Okay, this is about Mars retrograde. It turns direct in February 23rd. So from then on, things improve there. If there was any delays, complications, they start, improving. And finally, anything connected to this fourth house that we talked about gets resolved by the end of April, when Mars fully leaves this zone of Cancer. So from the end of February, the most intense work for Aries, especially the second part, Aries from 15 to 30 degrees, where you're most stressed, and sometimes when Mars squaring your sun, for example, or moon, it might not be even to do with family matters during those January, February. It might be just that you're, even with the ascendant, that you're more triggered, those last 15 degrees, that you're more reactive emotionally, that you're more susceptible to inflammation or any kind of inflammatory or hot conditions or cuts and burns, accidents, even at home, because it's from the fourth house. But the fourth house is also your emotional state. You might be very fired up emotionally. It can be good because you can use this fire to really change how you feel, change your emotional foundation in life, make it more stronger in some way, or do some important work, because sometimes we need to get fired emotionally to get activated to do something important. Motion, it creates emotion, carries the word motion. And of course, Aries is all about action. And our actions, the first 2-3 months of the year at least, will be very emotional. But if we're wise, if we're more spiritually evolved and more self-introspective, and we can see this, instead of just being triggered and reacting to everyone and getting explosive, we can use this energy to change ourselves. We can use this energy to re-examine our past, to do something. The most practical way is fix something around the house, to use this energy, repair something. Other more spiritual ways is Mars can dig back into your past, your childhood, your ancestral patterns, and reveal a lot, and you can fix a lot. Mars is the fixer, upper energy. And almost like even exercise can help you unlock a lot of blocked energy that come from your childhood, unprocessed feelings, because the fourth house is your childhood, your ancestral, how we inherit patterns and feelings and whole behavioral patterns from family. Well, now Mars here can help you destroy it, not destroy it, let's say, rework it. And part of it might be with even physical exercise. So actually for Aries, the first 2-3 months of the year, physical exercise will be emotionally relieving or moving. It can be just swimming. It can be just walking, as long as there's some movement there, action, Mars, or moving with family somewhere. This can release a lot of emotional tension and heal emotional trauma from childhood or unhealthy patterns in some way. This is the psychological side of it. Or you might just be revisiting old places, with Mars going retrograde in the fourth, revisiting an old place you used to live with, an old place you feel like home, an old family member, or revisiting and doing something there more actively. Like we're planning exactly around that time to be moving back to the States, to buy real estate, to fix it or fix our old one. We'll see how it will work out. But this is what the energy of Mars here is for. Now, on January, another big event is happening. From pretty much the beginning of January, while you're doing with this Mars, the North Node and the South Node leave Aries. They were for 1.5 years in Aries. They kind of gave you more adventurous spirit, more lustful life, because Rahu, the North Node in your sign, tends to awaken the desire nature. So maybe depends where Aries is in your horoscope. If it's your ascendant is not Aries. If it's in the third, for me, it was to travel, to study, to explore. If it's in the seventh, desire for relationships with connecting, whatever. But it's moving out of Aries. And actually, this might be because Rahu is exciting energy. It's kind of very material energy, but it's also the desires can drain people and can this hunger And those desires also the unstable energy. So, and it leaves Aries, but there'll be still one more last eclipse in March in Aries. So you still have lingering effect there. But it means that the energy becomes a bit more settled for Aries. And the North Node moves into your 12th house to join Saturn and Neptune. It becomes a powerhouse of planets from January already, and especially strong it will be in February, because the North Node will join Neptune there, and then the North Node will join in April Saturn there in your 12th house. So it's from the beginning of January into April, May, those 3-4 months, you would feel very strongly the North Node, Neptune, and Saturn combination in your 12th house. So parallel with this 4th house that you might be doing here, this trend till March, like we said, April, there is this other trend of the North Node, very intense with Saturn and Neptune, 3 planets in the 12th house. What does it want from you? Actually, the North Node joins Neptune in February the 7th, but you'd feel it already from January, and it continues to be there. I don't believe that those transits affect only on the day of the conjunction. And the Saturn conjunct North Node is on the 21st of April. I give you the whole 4 months that you'll be strongly felt, and that you have to work on those topic of the 12th house, which is what? Release. Let go. And you see there is an interesting combination. We're getting activated at the same time 2 water houses, they're in blue, 2 emotional houses, 12 and 4. In Vedic astrology, they're also called moksha houses of liberation, moksha houses of letting go, releasing, liberation of the soul. So only those water houses are the ones that can raise your consciousness and can help you empty emotional burden and emotional baggage that keeps you down at the low vibration. And liberation, moksha, is not that you receive nirvana and never come back to earth. We, over hundreds of years, have many mokshas, many liberations of the spirit from old patterns, old behaviors, old things that make us heavy and weigh us down astrally. And I think those 3-4 months of the year at the beginning, especially the first 2-3 months, very important with Mars retrograde, North Node, Neptune, Saturn, that you release something from the past. You rework some old patterns, letting go. And the 4th house is early childhood, 12th house is things from past lifetimes or things that you've buried, you don't remember them. So you see 4 mighty planets, Saturn, Neptune, the North Node, and Mars are working in those subconscious houses of releasing, healing. And it might not be very comfortable because past memories can be coming to the surface when all those planets are stirring the pot of the feelings and the emotions that you've forgotten from early childhood. Ancestral memories, even of past life memories, come together to be reworked, to be churned. That's what the nodes do. They churn the oceans. These are water signs, the oceans of your feelings, so you can feel more emotional than other times, the beginning of the year. You can, and especially because it's time to disconnect from things that are keeping you back. Remember, Saturn is re-examining emotional patterns or attachments or even places that are keeping you back. 12th house is anything, even past life things that can come, and you can become much more aware of topics about past lives, memories that you forgotten coming to the surface, your dream life, because North Node will reawaken it, make it more vivid, can be where you're working through difficult issues there with Saturn as well, where I've been having Saturn in the 12th from my Sun, Venus, and Mercury, and I've been dreaming a lot. And Saturn sometimes can block dreams, but usually things that are my fears, that are my issues, that I'm working them there. Plus, since Saturn entered my 12th house, I started working with a psychologist, 12 from the Sun, you know. So this is a good time to work with a psychologist, or if you're naturally more introspective person, the process happens naturally. Like I'm a prayerful person, and a 12th house rules prayer, 4th house, 12th house, the introspection prayer about the past, seeing what behaviors work and what not, and kind of releasing them and reworking them. And yeah, Saturn there with the North Node when it joins Saturn, because Saturn has been in your 12th house for almost 2 years by now, or a year and a half at least. North Node will, for 2 years, yeah, North Node will start speeding up those processes of psychological release of the path. And of course, North Node with Neptune and Saturn can help you release addictions and self-sabotaging behaviors, vices. Wherever North Node goes, we become much more passionate and activated. It activates the desire body, while the 12th house is the house of, you might desire the spiritual a lot, but desiring the spiritual and this freedom will push you to motivate you, especially desiring this freedom to let go of things that are addictive to you, things that are keeping you in prison. 12th house rules prisons. And that can be some of the important work for you, the beginning of the year. But on a negative scale, Rahu can increase the desires for tamasic. Tamasic is the dark, the inert substances that dull us, that make us not feel, that disconnect. And Neptune is addictive behavior. So there is this danger here that if you're not actively trying to release yourself from vices and weaknesses, the 12th house rules, those self-sabotaging behaviors like addictions and whatever, they might be physical, they might be emotional addictions. If you're not actively trying to, with the hard work of Saturn, the desire of the North Node, you might fall further down into addiction. But sometimes this is necessary, what they call it, to hit rock bottom with something, as some kind of a crisis. So when it escalates, you see, like, that's it, I can't go further, and you get satiated, and but there is this danger that it can escalate as well. But there is also like the medicine is in the poison, as they call, the healing is in the poison. And so, yeah, I'm giving you those ideas so you know what the energies feel like the beginning. On another level, it's just not this psychological deep dive into the subconscious, working on your subconscious, but there can be some very powerful realization here. And Saturn wants to end the karma of the past when it's in the 12th house, even though it's a slow process, but Rahu speeds up this process because Saturn does things slowly with effort. It doesn't happen like overnight, but Rahu can allow this here. Plus Rahu and Saturn and Neptune start a new cycle. For some of you, it can be a very spiritual period because South Node with North Node with Neptune and Saturn carry the energy together of the Hermit or the Hanged Man in Tarot. That's how I feel it. It has a ascetic energy. And Saturn is discipline and asceticism, denying yourself the things from the world, while Neptune is spiritual attainment, and Rahu really magnifies this energy. So I can tell you some of you might have actual ability now to deny themselves, to disconnect themselves from the worldly desires, from the worldly stimulation, because it's also in the 12th house of what? Spiritual awakening, the mystical, the invisible worlds. So some of you, maybe not a big number, but some number of Aries rising people, to lesser degree Sun or Moon as well. There is this opening of the spiritual channels there through ability to deny yourself certain things that draw you into the worldly and will give you access to the higher realms, which is Neptunian divine love, and even some kind of healing, releasing a lot of past trauma, working consciously. Some of you might decide going on retreats during those 3-4 months, the beginning of the year, retreats, meditation things, or just start some spiritual practice, because Rahu really intensifies the desire for such things. And they can be powerful breakthroughs there. Spiritually, you can be downloading energy, you can be downloading information, messages from invisible worlds. This is the area of the 12th house where those 3 planets are meeting. If you're an artist, this can be a powerful period of kind of a bit isolation. There is this isolation energy, those 2-3 months at the beginning of the year, because all the important events like Mars retrograde and all these planets coming together are in hidden emotional houses. The real important things are also happening internally. And so if you're an artist, you might find that during this period, you're downloading information, you're downloading inspiration. Neptune is magnified through the North Node. Neptune is what? Fine arts, divine ideas, you know, and there might be lower vibrational ideas. Now there is different entities that we can connect. And Saturn is to manifest it and to work hard to manifest it in some way. Some dream or goal, the Saturn-Neptune combination with the North Node, you might be really putting into flesh starting from the beginning of the year. Or it's also some research. You might start researching something, delving deep, because the 12th house, the house of research, of deep studies, of investigating something. And also because all those planets, Neptune and Saturn, will soon move into your first house, fully into 2026. They'll dip a bit into 2025. But it's like before they dip in there, it's there in the last house, ending karma, ending past connections, ending things that hold you back. With this, there is a dose of sacrifice and giving up things that no longer serve you. If you're not doing consciously, life and the universe can take those things from you, because the 12th house is house of losses. From the material perspective, there are losses. They can be losses of people, direction in life, careers. But don't look at this as losses. Yes, they might be a grieving process you need to go through. It's okay. This is perfect combination for grieving, for retreating from society a little bit, from working on your subconscious, from staying with the feelings, more introspective. Might be even good to go away somewhere that is not in your familiar environment, to detach yourself from the familiar environment. 12 house rules, far away countries, places, you know, with the North Node. And the North Node will be there for a year and a half, till the middle of 2025. By that time, Saturn and Neptune will leave, especially 2026. By the mid 2026, the North Node will be there. But there is here that this North Node can activate for you not just losses, grieving, endings, which is 12th house, paying off of karma. And it can be good karma, you know, that you're completing something, you're reaping the rewards, harvesting, but it's something you feel something is coming to an end, and it's okay, and that is right, because something totally new is starting from you with Saturn and Neptune moving into your sign. And the North Node here will speed up those endings and will speed up your desire. 12th house is unknown places, unknown lands. So you might travel for spiritual reasons, for healing reasons. You might travel to more Saturnian, Neptunian places, maybe more places like a spiritual travel, or for work sometimes as well because of that, or for grief sometimes, in extreme cases, to heal grief, or for kind of there is this energy of loneliness of Neptune and Saturn, the ascetic, the hangman who wants to be alone and introspect and go deeply. And these are good things. I don't know, maybe rocky places, go to Arizona, go to some desert, or Neptune, ocean, and oceans and rocky places, or mountains, Saturn and Neptune, but faraway places, and also ancient cultures you might want to explore. If you can't travel physically, 2025, because it's a theme pretty much throughout the whole year, because Neptune and Saturn are in your 12th house with the North Node pretty much 9 months out of 12. So it's not just the beginning of the year. Neptune and Saturn dip back, or dip for 2-3 months into Aries, then dip back there with the North Node. So this whole 2025, there might be a theme of, first of all, the beginning, because of Mars even moving, changing something, but foreign places, faraway places, traveling to foreign places, or spiritual travels. Some of you might astrally travel, or in your dreams be very vivid to do spiritual work, or do spiritual studies and research, not necessarily only spiritual. It can be scientific research, digging, introspection, psychological work. This is all the domains of the 12th house, or even some kind of artistic, using art as therapy, drawing, painting, music. You might become much more attuned to hearing music with Neptune, with the North Node, and hearing the celestial spheres and so on. Or if you're in those artistic areas, it can be quite good for you, for activation. But otherwise, for people that are more pragmatic, that want to go and do stuff, a lot of the times it might feel like these planets are asking you to go internally, to even let go of some of your responsibilities until Saturn enters into Aries, of course. Then it will be all time to mobilize all your responsibilities. But especially the first 3-4 months, and then from October, November again, when Saturn, Neptune, and South Node, where you can rest more, you can take it easy, you can kind of more preparatory state. You're more like not in a acquisitional state, but in letting go state. You just want to let go of old stuff and release and soulful moments. Okay. And of course, the South Node for 1.5 years will be in your 6th house. So as I said, it means maybe not trying to control things so much. I don't know, more like 6th house is letting go of trying to make everything happen according to how you want it. This perfectionist streak, and leaning into letting go and letting God and exploring the internal. And when there are many planets in the 12th house, like you have for a big time Aries, especially Aries rising, you might feel that events happen almost in a miraculous way without your intervention, because these are consequences of past actions. Even if you don't see the connection karmically, it's consequence. And it might be not so much good consequence, because karmic, it's almost like forces have been put in action, and forces beyond your ability to influence them are acting on you with the Saturn and Neptune and the South Node in the 12th house. It's almost like you might feel sometimes that you're not in control while they're there. For a little bit, Saturn enters in your sign and Neptune, then it won't feel as much like that. But you might feel that, the first few months of the year, the last few months of the year, that things are a little bit out of your control, that almost like invisible forces are moving things, and that's okay. And you have to accept it. You're required to show this very spiritual side of you, which is acceptance, not like I give up, kind of like I'm accepting whatever's happening. And it might be wonderful. You might have certain plans, how your life will go, what you're going to do this year, whatever. Saturn, Neptune, North Node in your 12th house says higher forces are organizing your life now. Many times we have a lot more free will, but when the 12th house is activated, these actions have been put into the snowball is rolling. You haven't seen it till now, but it's coming. And it might be a wonderful snowball. It might be you have, I'm going to do this and this, but God has totally different plan for you. And now in 2025, a lot of you feel like they're kind of on the mercy of destiny, and that they have less free will than normal, more of the months than less. But that's again for good. And of course, the North Node day is asking you, let go and let God. Let go and let God. Let go and let God. Yes. Remember this. And Saturn there and Neptune. If you're trying to control things too much and direct them, if your will is aligned to divine will, okay. If it's not, you might end up in a much better place than you thought, but initially you might feel like vulnerable and helpless, like you're a little boat on the seas of the ocean that blowing you around and taking you, and you want to go from this island to this island, but God leads you to a totally new place, and you're like, oh no, disaster, but you end up there and you're like, wow, much better place. So trust in this process, even if you feel overwhelmed sometimes. And I said to myself, because I'm like, where should we live, God? Look what's happening to the world. Will there be civil wars, catastrophic events, whatever? And I saw that my 12th house will be activated, God will take over. And I said, so the best thing when this 12th house is activated, have spiritual practice, have time of quiet, meditation, where you can feel where things are pushing you. And even if you are not so sensitive like me, not too peaceful enough to be able to calm down enough to feel those impressions, you might intuitively know, or external circumstances might kind of switch your life around in such a way. You've planned this, but you're like, what? And after that, gradually those planets start moving. Well, the North Node is moving backwards, but yeah, so this trust in the plan, trust in God, and have a prayer. Like if you're not naturally meditative like me, or if you are, that's great. Or you can get messages in your dreams or from psychics and astrologers. So studying, you might be a great time to study metaphysical knowledge or any kind of scientific research. As I said, if you're in such fields, it can be very stimulating, artistic, metaphysical, scientific, where you need to be isolated, where you work long hours isolated, creating or working on some problem, like people in laboratories, people in hospitals, people in isolated environments. They can be very busy. And hopefully this doesn't also mean that you get activation of going to hospital. If you do, hopefully it's for a good reason, baby or whatever. But sometimes this can mean either a period of isolation that is necessary, or withdrawing from the world, whether you do it consciously or no, it might be imposed on you to be more lonely, more isolated. So those introspective process and rearrangement of your subconscious and cleaning there can happen. You need the peace for that. Thankfully, I'm quite isolationist, so not a big deal. Now we carry on into, we said February, Neptune conjuncts the South Node on the 7th. Of course, you can, in your 12th house, downloads, dreams, as I said, can be happening. Powerful spiritual experiences and so on. Traveling abroad is possible, faraway travels, or studying mystical, such kind of stuff. Secrets. Forgot to say, secrets can be coming to the surface. Of things from your subconscious that you are not aware of can come, or even past life memories can resurface, which can also instigate healings of any sorts. And on the 17th, on the 23rd of February, Mars turns direct. So that's the other big event in February, which is, as I said, and it will stay in your 4th house till middle of April. So then things connected to home, property, real estate, family, parenthood start becoming easier and going in a direction that is easier to kind of, not easier, but you start seeing the results of the effort you've made. Maybe things starts moving forward rather than having to be reworked, and you start, problems start solving if there was some conflict and so on. Now we continue to March. March will be one of the most busy months for you, Aries. Maybe not necessarily just busy, the most pivotal, because we're going to have Mercury and Venus going retrograde in your sign. So book yourself, very intense. Maybe even from late in February, you'd feel it, because Venus becomes retrograde right on the 1st of April. You might feel its pre-shadow period in February, and it becomes retrograde at 10 degrees in Aries. So I would say the first 15 degrees of Aries again are going to feel this. So the first 15 degrees of Aries, well, the Cancer retrograde is the last 15 degrees, from 15 to 30 in Aries. They felt it more intensely. But now in March, even from the end of February, early born Aries will feel this stronger. But even if you're later born Aries, pay attention, because they're in your sign. On the 1st, Venus becomes retrograde. On the 15th, Mercury becomes retrograde at 9-10 degrees. They both become retrograde around the same degrees. So anyone from 15 to 5 degrees, this is where Mercury and Venus become stationary, they'll feel it very intensely, because when a planet changes direction, those degrees that are closest to the degrees where planet changes directions are the ones that really get affected the strongest. So if you have anything in areas around 10 degrees, 9-10 degrees, the closer the more potent. But all the first 10 degrees of Aries, so I would say even to 15 degrees of Aries, very important. From April, even from Mercury, it's kind of some revision. Depends if it's your sun, moon, or ascendant in Aries. Let's see how it can be. If it's your ascendant, it can be that you're revising the direction of your life. You're revising what to do. You've had some plans, you have to change them now. It's not necessarily bad. Again, retrograde planets give us an alternative perspective, which is might be better, because sometimes God has much better plans for us. And again, I remind you, trust in the higher powers with all those planets in your 12th house. Don't doubt higher powers, especially in March when planet starts going retrograde in your sign, and you'll be like, I thought I'm gonna do this, but now look at it. They can be a bit of this. You have your plans, you have to rework them to be more flexible in March, even from February, but in March, very powerfully. But again, I'm very often when Mercury or Venus, because they've gone retrograde in my sign before, not together, but I get thrown off. My day is going like, I have some plans, whatever, but it gets thrown off. So the moment Mars leaves us, it starts being direct, Venus and Mercury go retrograde. So it's kind of like we don't have a break this first few months. And again, it's revision time. And might be revising relationships, because Venus rules our 7th house of relationships. We might be revising our finances as well, or we're doing something there, having to change something, rethink, because Venus rules the 2nd house. We might be revising some friendships, relationships with people, because there's the 2 social planets, re-examining relationships with clients, with boyfriend, girlfriends, with mates, with partners, or having important clarifying conversations. This March is very important for that. Make a different plan. Sit down and say things that were buried but need to be, things from the past that need to be discussed, or things that you didn't know that come to the surface to be re-examined, or things that have been building up in you, but you've been holding it, and now others approach you to sort this out, or you approach them and you say, okay, I want, let's renegotiate our relationship. Let's choose different rules of the game, how we play this game of this relationship, whether it's a business relationship, whether it's contractual one, whether it's a marriage one, whether it's a love one. And you kind of re-examine those things, and if they're willing to, relationships will become stronger, better, more fair. Both Venus and Mercury are wonderful planets. They want to do fair things. When I had, for example, Mercury retrograde in Aries over my sun exactly, I really found out some things about someone who was my administrative left hand, Mercury, who was doing that stuff behind my back. And I tried to see if we can work it through, but we couldn't. She started threatening me, stole the emails of our clients and said I'll write to them and stuff. So I'm like, okay, no more, So sometimes you end collaborations, friendships, some certain relationships, if there is no more meat in that relationship, if it's not fair, if it's not good for you. So whatever relationships leaves your life during Mercury, Venus retrograde in your house, in your 1st house, whether it's clients, whether it's for really for good, because there is no mutual or equal balance there. They're not giving as much, or you're not willing to give as much, and it's not good for, it's like, it should end. It's best that it ends. But usually if you work out a relationship through the spirit, it becomes much better. It becomes much more positive, much more fulfilling. So even if there's some little bit of a crisis there, again, remember, it's for the best. Now, another way it can play out is that you see people you haven't seen for a while. Venus rules other people. Mercury rules another social house of yours. Venus rules the 7th, Mercury the 3rd. You meet some social people that you haven't seen, some ex-boyfriend or friend you haven't seen, or relatives and siblings and extended family that you haven't seen, that you reconnect with them March, maybe even from February in some way, and that you touch base again and get a chance to speak about the past and so on. And you might be more reminiscing about the past. That's another way retrograde planets work. Revisiting, because Mercury rules short trips, some old places, short trips that you loved before, or or going to short trips or travels that you've planned before but you haven't been able to fulfill. You can do them now. But otherwise, you might be, if you're planning brand new trips in March, it might be kind of it's not that it's not going to work. There will be more complications. So also be careful with traveling and such things. But if you're revisiting a place you've been and you've loved, that I've many times traveled on Mercury retrograde and Venus, usually going back to places that I know and love, and it feels very happy. I hope maybe I'm in Hawaii, who knows? Or maybe with the storehouse here, God has totally different plans for me. Of course, you have to be careful more about your health with Mercury, Venus retrograde. Those first 10, 15 degrees, re-examine. If it's your ascendant in Aries, for example, and Sun and Moon, re-examine your health habits, because Mercury rules your sixth house as well. Mercury is one of the planets that can give you illness if you're not living in a healthy way. Re-examine your health habits, how you eat, what you put in your body, because Venus also rules the second house, what you eat. That can be a time you really redo your health, or start really looking and re-examining into this. How can you do it differently? Or even you might start thinking, I want to change my physical appearance in some way. I'm not saying it will happen in 1 month while those planets are retrograde, but it can be the beginning of you thinking, how do you want to look, or how do you want to be as a person? The first house is your whole path in life as well. And if it's your ascendant also, it can be that you're redoing some old job that requires, or that something you haven't finished, because of course Mercury rules the sixth house of work, Venus rules the second house of money. So it might be for some of you not at all connected to relationships, because Venus and Mercury also rules relationship houses. So you might be connected to some work projects you have to work, put extra efforts to. Retrograde period is 3 times more efforts. But the final results, when they turn direct, that towards the end of March for Mercury and for Venus in May sometime, you can see 3 times more lasting results. But something editing, fixing, redoing, why not? You know, that's good thing for Mercury, Venus retrograde in your first house. But also having 2 benefics for a longer extended time. They start from March, they start from February to be in Aries into March. There it's also very good. You can start looking better by the end of those period. You can really, I remember having Venus in retrograde in Aries before, and by the end of this process, people say you look better somehow, because you become more intentional. Retrogrades planets make that about taking care of your physical appearance with Venus, taking care of yourself, doing good stuff for yourself, you know. And of course, with Mercury, you'd even try to do better nutrition because it rules the sixth house. So this can be kind of a rebirth. The retrograde period, always like the cocoon stage of the rebirth of the caterpillar. So the cocoon stage where everything falls apart inside. And out of those fallen apart cells of the caterpillar, you create a butterfly. But it can be such a period in March into April as well. And Mercury turns direct. And Mercury as well can be redoing something, some project, rescheduling your plans. You have certain plans, but you go differently. They might go much better. Always forget, not always bad stuff. It also will show you mistakes you've done. So you have to be careful with passwords, with information not to lose. That's something, if you're not well secured there, websites, passwords, communication devices, trips, traveling cars. It can be, your kid might be steaming in March. But again, keep remembering there is something good. This problem is being shown to me, so I can correct it, make it more secure, make it better. Again, you'll be very happy with the final results. Hopefully, if you don't, the sky is falling. But again, having 2 benefics, and oftentimes when Mercury is retrograde in one of my important signs, I get a lot of important work done. I re-edit some of my work, I bring it back up, or I put extra efforts to do something, mercurial, media marketing, whatever, come back to an old idea, develop it. So if you're a creative person, if you're a person that wants to do good, to contribute to others, to just want to do good stuff for the world, Mercury retrogrades, Venus retrogrades, fantastic periods, they help you. Of course, people intentionally who do dodgy stuff, retrograde periods is when those things come back to show. Those things can come to the surface. Those things can show the problems, you know, and they show you, you need to correct something here. You need to do it differently. You need to rethink it alternatively and so on. If you're involved in any Venusian career, beauty, art, music, food, luxury, working with women, working with luxury industry, entertainment industry, very important period. March and April, while Venus is retrograde there, starting from February, March, April, the whole Venus shadow and that, you might be working on some very important Venusian project, art or brand or luxury or something, whatever it is, your work might be some very important thing that you need to put extra efforts into. Or for Adam or for people that are not in Venus careers, it's might be working, putting efforts on health, on vitality, which is also Venusian, on appearance even in some way, or in relationships. Remember, Venus is very much relationships. And so these are some very important things will be happening here, March, April. And again, I want to tell you, this is not bad. This is good. And we have in April also an eclipse in it, in lunar eclipse on the 14th, when Mercury is turning retrograde. So March is like Venus retrograde on the 1st. Lunar eclipse in your 6th house with the South Node and opposite Saturn and Neptune. This is, I have to tell you, you know, sometimes there can be some health issue. You have to be careful with this eclipse. I always get sick in March. I don't know about you. Being an Aries, when March is around, before the sun comes back into Aries, I'm the weakest, this 12th house activation. But yeah, with eclipse in the 6th house, you can get sick, which is a sign again to activate. And Mercury is also telling you revise your health as the ruler of the eclipse in the 1st house. So you might have to rethink your diet, your lifestyle in some way, your habits, your routines, what you put in your body, 6 houses, that. So might be this full moon eclipse, an awakening or like a redirecting, because eclipses are about fated redirection of towards your health. And if you're doing the right thing, this can be really great to intuitively draw you to the right type of exercise, the right type of herbs, the right types of foods, that will heal you, the right types of methods for healing. Doesn't have to be alternative. That you find a solution, a diagnostic or the right diagnostic, that you find a solution for some health issue. But of course, this eclipse is opposite Saturn and Neptune, so there might be some difficulties there. Just so you know, be careful with your digestion. Virgo rules the digestion and so on. Try to be really more minimalistic in March, even from February. Kind of like a fast would really help, because the South Node, it's an eclipse with the South Node, to give up something, to let go of something, to be minimalistic, to be more to go with less, which is the South Node. More, so eat less if possible. Or the universe can force you to do that. Remove something, to work with the energies of the eclipse so it doesn't surprise you, you know. Remove sugar, remove smoking, remove something from you. Also, the 6th house is work, not just health. This eclipse can mean like a big shift in your work. And that's why here, Mercury and Venus also retrograde, and you have to quickly reduce schedules and replans for your life. Some of you might quit a job, start a new one, or complete a project they've been working on, because it's a full moon eclipse, something coming to a completion, seeing the full results of it and ending it, South Node. And put the focus here on employees as well as the 6th house, people that work for you, people that are employed by you in some way. There might be something important with this eclipse happening there as well. And you have to be very flexible. Remember, both Mercury and Venus are retrograde. And then On the 29th of March is another eclipse. This March is like, and this one you're gonna feel strongly because it's in Aries at 9 degrees. Okay, Mercury and Venus go retrograde on 9-10 degrees, the first half of the month in Aries, and then there is an eclipse exactly at 9 degrees, solar eclipse. It means with the sun and the moon and the north node. Even though it's in Pisces, the north node is it's partial solar eclipse because it's the north node is a bit far from the sun, but it's still, you know, there's partial, but it's a solar eclipse. If you have your sun, moon, or ascendant around 9 degrees, I would say from 7 to 12, you know, that it can be life-changing. I have my Mercury there, so, you know, hopefully my siblings and relatives are okay, but it's a solar eclipse with the north node, and it's a new beginnings. It's supposed to bring you something new over the next 6 months. So starting from March or the end of March or May, it can bring something totally new in your life. Which is of material nature, because Rahu is of a material nature that causes the eclipse, the north node of the moon, this eclipse. So something of material, but if it's close to your sun, it can totally change the direction in your career. Something important can happen. Things go hopefully not negative with father figure, with important men in your life. Of course, if it's over your sun, moon, or ascendant around 9 degrees, as I said, I gave you an orb, but you have to be careful about health. This month, there is a lot of signs for Aries to try to be really kind of careful about health, because of retrograde planets in those first 10 degrees, eclipse at 9 degrees. But because usually when big changes are happening in life, the health is also, because the big shifting of layers and new directions in life and changing of directions, that weakens the immune system, even if it's something good. Say maybe a baby is being born. Oh, it's a big shock. When I had my first son, I had Venus, Mercury retrograde, one in Aries, one in Saturn. Everything was, I was like a shock for me, you know. So it's sometimes it's a very good change that is happening, but because it's big, the body, the immune system, again, the immune system doesn't recognize good or bad. It's like a big change of routine, and the environment's happening, and you just, the body again, from the shock, from the excitement, again can, so you don't expect something negative, but a change, a big change, that's why you have to watch out your health. But this is when big events happen with eclipses in your sign. If it's very close to your sun, moon, or ascendant, births, deaths, marriages within the next 6-7 months, marriages, changes of jobs. And because it's Rahu, I think it will bring you something. And it can be, they say, when there is an eclipse over your sun, you can become like a king, get a position of higher whatever, and so on. Maybe a sign that for over the next few months, there can be high achievements. If it's an eclipse on your ascendant, very new direction in life can happen. Renewal. What is eclipses? I was praying once and asking God, now starting the eclipses in Aries and the nodes entering there, and what does it mean? And the moment I was praying, because I'm walking and praying, and I look down and I see the skin of a snake. It shed its skin. And I was like, that's it. Eclipses are caused by Rahu and Ketu, the snake, the dragon. And when we have eclipses, it's shedding of old skin. Because you're growing, your soul is growing, you need different skin now, bigger one. And that's what I know this is some kind of a period of rebirth when there is an eclipse close to your sun, moon, or ascendant. Sometimes it's chaotic, it's crisis. It can feel like a crisis. Imagine peeling out of your skin, figuratively. Metaphorically, sorry. Oh, yeah. But again, there is a new you being reborn if you're around those degrees. And with Mercury and Venus being retrograde, starting on those degrees, it's interesting. You'll have to write to me what is happening. And March doesn't finish with the solar eclipse. At the end of March, on the 30th, Neptune moves into Aries. Oh, I forgot to say, Mercury turns direct. Oh, no, it's in April. Yeah. So March, the last day of March, so the 29th of March, solar eclipse in Aries. And there will be big events happening in the world in March and April. Mark my words, just so many astrological events. But for you, Neptune enters Aries. And by that time, Mercury and Venus, I think, are already into your 12th house by the 30th of April. Neptune is dipping into Aries for, look at that here on my, from March to October. It will be in Aries, then goes back into Pisces, and in 2026, go full time into your sign. So you're gonna get a glimpse from March, the end of March, I would say April already, till October, 5 months. April, May, June, July, September, almost 6 months. You're gonna half of the year, Neptune is in your sign. What it is to have Neptune in your first house. Only those, Neptune reaches only up to the 2nd degrees in Aries. So if your sun, moon, or ascendant from 0 to 3 degrees, even 4, you might start feeling the energy very intensely, but statistically, Neptune is in the first 2 degrees of Aries only, till the 3rd. You're going to have a Neptune transit over a sun, moon, or ascendant, which is once in a lifetime transit, which is very spiritualizing, which is about might dissolve your whole personality, direction in life, spiritualize your career. It can bring travels, movements, because Neptune is about foreign places. I actually have Neptune transiting my ascendant in Aquarius. Exactly the year, the year 2000, when I moved to live in a totally foreign country. I relocated abroad with knowing no one. I felt like so lonely, but it was an adventure. I went to fulfill my dream there. And the next 14 years while Neptune was in my first house, I'm just giving you an example so you know what it feels, how it can manifest for some of you. Neptune in the first house. I was talking personally, I had it in my ascendant sign. It will be a bit different in the sun or moon, but it's still Neptune. Neptune in the first house can be, for me, it was foreign relocation, far away living over the ocean. Neptune rules the unknown. And you really need to trust that God has your back because it can throw you in very unknown waters, especially those first 2 degrees. But I'm giving the explanation now to all areas that will experience it at some point over the next 12 years, over the next 14 years, when Neptune 16. I think Neptune will be in Aries for 16 years. So you might be put into one of the best manifestation of Neptune can be foreign, faraway places, unknown cultures. The other thing that happened to me when I relocated overseas, it was literally overseas, living on an island. I got addicted to drugs for a couple of years while Neptune was very close to my ascendant. I was stupid and silly then. I hope now when Neptune passes over my sun, it will be nirvana, spiritual alignment with God, not this. But that's the other negative side to it. And thankfully, when Neptune moved away from my ascendant degrees by 2-3 degrees, I got unhooked from drugs. But that was my druggy stage. And I was just like really in the hands of God. And there was periods when I was, God, whatever you do, I'm ready. I can come back to you. But I made a few prayers and I prayed and I said, if you can save me, God, and I was healed. I was able, my circumstances changed where I was with people who were not using, they were supportive, and I was able to stop. So just saying that Neptune sometimes, if you, especially younger people, more susceptible people to such, it can do that. But a Neptune is also the desire to merge. That's why Neptune brings those addictions, because it's the desire to merge with higher power, to reach higher states of consciousness. So actually more aware, if you're here, if you're watching this video, you're normally people who are not, I mean, you surely have human weaknesses, but who are striving towards the spiritual, towards the mystical. Well, that's what Neptune will do in Aries for 15 years. Actually, it will bring us closer. It will spiritualizes. And by the way, till now, Aries for years had first Pluto since 2008 squaring Aries. It's a tough planet. It makes us tougher. It makes us confront with the dark side of life and develop muscle with our shadow. It's kind of a planet of battle. Then we had Uranus through Aries, which is kind of quite rough energy again of changes. And Neptune now comes. So after those toughening planets, Uranus, Neptune for the last 15 years on Aries, now comes Neptune and says, I will make you gentle. I will spiritualize you. I will polish those rough edges. But the process sometimes can feel like losing, like feeling like a victim from time to time. Now, remember, I was very gentle when Neptune was in my first house, and everyone would say, oh, you kind of have this innocent, this victim, you're trusting, because Neptune makes us open up to others to trust, and sometimes we can be taken advantage of. But I don't think this will happen the next 2-3 years for Aries, because Saturn will also be in Aries. But only the first 2 degrees might feel this now. The first 2-3 degrees in the next couple of years, so 4-5 degrees, can feel this this softening of Neptune. Maybe in extreme cases, it makes you feel like a victim. And again, it is so you can turn to a higher power and say, I give everything in your hands, lead me. Neptune has the energy of the 12th house. So coming into your sign, you know what I was talking about? Powers higher than you, let go and let God. Neptune for 15 years in Aries will teach Aries exactly that. But first, Saturn will pass there for 3 years, 2.5 years, from 2025 till 2028 approximately, which means that first Saturn will really organize us, make us tough, make us very organized, which is good actually. Because Saturn will first teach us to put boundaries the next 3 years and to really, Saturn is very black and white and is able to put boundaries, put routines on oneself, be strict on oneself, and discipline. And if we have it as foundation for the next 30 years, because Saturn is starting a new cycle in Aries, then we'll pass through the Neptune fog and spiritualization without losing ourselves. If we put those good foundations and structures the next 3 years, this is the most important work we'll have to do once Saturn enters into Aries, then the Neptune energy in Aries for the next 14 years is not going to make us lose ourselves in the fog. Because you know what is freedom? Freedom is discipline. Freedom, the more disciplined you are, the more freedom comes into your life, which is interesting, but I truly believe it. Freedom comes through self-discipline. And Saturn first, like Pisces had the opposite. Pisces first had Neptune through their sign for 14 years. And then now Saturn is structuring them and organizing them to get their stuff together, to put boundaries, to get manifesting. For us is the opposite. First Saturn, and by the way, Saturn and Neptune meet in our sign in July. In Aries, I'm jumping a bit ahead, but that's like in the first 2 degrees. This is incredible because it will mean that we are, Aries will be called to play some very important role. This cycle is about 35 years of Saturn Neptune. For 35 years ahead, some Aries will be called to play some very important role in the evolution of humanity, in the world. Even if you're not an important person, somehow Aries, because that's where the cycle of Saturn and Neptune starts, will play a role of this new ideals that comes, of this new system. Saturn is a system, Neptune is new ideals. In Aries, new heroes, new inspiration for humanity, new belief systems, new religion and spirituality almost is coming. I'm not saying that we'll reinvent Christianity, but there is this Neptune, Saturn can be like a revival energy, new waves, or higher level of knowledge about higher level of spirituality that comes, revival, and many areas will play an important role in that. But coming back to Neptune in Aries, so I was telling you, for me, it played out being in foreign countries for that many years. I became very glamorous. Neptune can make you glamorous. I was dressing very feminine. Before Neptune entered my first house, I had short hair, spiky, because Uranus was before that in my first house. And then Neptune enters my first house, and I started grew my hair, started wearing feminine clothes. There's this softening, kind of became more, because Neptune rounds you a little bit. If it's your ascendant in appearance, you can feel it. Neptune makes you hold a bit more water as well. Of course, Neptunian illnesses can be more typical, especially for the first 2 degrees of Aries this year, for others later on, which are kind of more the phlegmatic nature or unknown nature, difficult to diagnose, sometimes tiredness, sometimes lethargy, sometimes of liquids retention of some sort. Just so you know, and it weakens the immune system. Neptune, it's kind of Neptune rules all invisible things that can come. So it is important for us Aries, again, it comes to this topic that we really start building up our immune system in some way, strengthening through exercise, through gentle ways. With Neptune can be with yoga. When Saturn comes, even some muscle exercise as well. So start this so you have better resistance to those invisible things ruled by Mercury, by Neptune, like fungi and Pluto is parasites. Neptune is bacteria and fungi and candida type of things. All right, but it's, again, the high manifestation of this is you become more spiritual. You can have having intuition, incredible spiritual experiences. Almost like a lot of Aries will not feel as competitive. When Saturn is in Aries, you'll be very organized. You'd feel much more Saturn than Neptune. But I'm just giving you a look over the next 15 years, because after that, it's almost like Aries, those rough edges of Aries are polished down. They become humbler. You know, Justin Bieber had Neptune transiting his sun, which is in Pisces. He's more prone to this. This is when he turned to God and accepted Jesus Christ as his savior. And this is when his healing started as well, because we all know what he's gone through to get there. So I'm not saying you become Christians, but Neptune is very Christian principle, Buddhist as well, which is about love, turn the other cheek. It's not just religion. It's this principle of forgiving, loving, being kind, giving your energy to others, because Aries is an active sign. You still want to act, but you'll be directing those actions more compassionately and more for the greater good for some reason over the next 14 years. And the roots and the seeds for those actions can be put now with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction for you this year in 2025, because this is the seeding of those new ideals that you can, ideals, Neptune, Saturn, that you can manifest. You might be acquired with Neptune to give up more, to give more, but somehow to give more for others without consideration what you'll get back. And that is the right way to approach, because now God will take care of you for many years. God will provide as long as you're there to be unconditional for others. You'll learn to understand unconditional love. There'll be many Aries over the next Aries people over the next 14 years falling in love that is, I had this Neptune over my moon, over ascendant. It's the period of falling in love, or just not necessarily, sometimes it's love that is not even fulfilled. Like you have an ideal there, and it's not necessarily even to be a person. It can be a being, it can be a belief system that you put as an ideal, you put on a pedestal, that if done the right way, if the right ideal chosen, there won't be a disappointment and disillusionment. And always the purest is God, is Jesus Christ. That should be your highest ideal, because there's no disillusionment there. Because there is no, but if you put a person, ideology, a belief system, or party, or some kind of a political or human ideal there, and I know it myself, and I'm sure I'm going to put some ideal on the wrong thing, but I'm just telling it to myself, you can have a big bubble burst of disillusionment over the next years. But if you put the right ideal, which is always God, which is always the higher, the Holy Spirit, God, the creator, then you cannot get disillusioned. So that's why always Neptune put the highest trust, because now you're supposed to put your trust in something. And many times people that are not spiritual, they put their trust in another person. And there is always disappointment. We're not perfect. They put their full trust and they are unconditionally believing. When Neptune is there, it's like the wool is pulled over our eyes. As long as this is something material from the material world, you put your full faith in, a human, a project, a figure, whether it's a relationship. I remember when my husband had Neptune over his Sun and Venus for 7 years, we were together. My ex-husband, he never realized I was unhappy. When I told him I'm leaving, I'm never being happy, he said, really? And I said, didn't you see? It's like when Neptune is there, you don't really, you can't really. And he says, I put you on a pedestal. Wow, he was having this Neptune. He says, I thought you would never do wrong. I thought like, and I said, you never saw the human in me. You never saw, this weakness in me, and you never thought it could end. And, so sometimes that's the negative side of Neptune, especially if we put all our trust in human things, in material things. But if you put it in ideals, in virtues, in some higher ideal, like in things that intangible, in love, compassion, inspiration, God, this is what is gonna push you off on such high vibration. And I've seen people after Neptune is transiting their sign, there's like a saintly aura around them. They become just so magnetic, and it's almost like Neptune at its highest vibration is because you are aligned to the will of God, to divine love. It's not so much you do it through will, you do things because you just want to love and help. And because of that, and you have your priorities right, which I hope Saturn will help us do before Neptune further advances into Aries, because Saturn is kind of more realistic. And if we have them right, what happens after that is that I've seen the highest manifestation is that a person, everything is provided for them. They're working for some ideal, to contribute something, because this is Neptune. It's almost like a sacrifice for the others. You're working on that, and God provides everything you need beyond your imagination as well. But if you're very connected to the earthly, to the material, Neptune will dissolve it all. If you use the material as a means to achieve some higher values, like helping, like creating some ideal, working towards some ideal, working towards some virtue, then the material will be enhanced and increased on you multiple. But if you're naturally someone who puts money or something material, or attachment to your physical appearance, attachment to a person highest, which a lot of us do, those things Neptune tends to take them away, especially the ones that we think we cannot live without, especially the ones that whatever you've made your idol above God. Is it money? Is it whatever? I'm giving you here a very philosophical lecture, but it's so important to understand it for Neptune transits, because we're going to have them for 14 years. Whatever you do, your idol and something material above God or above moral, higher spiritual principles and love, the other name for God is love, that will be taken away from you. That's why sometimes there are big losses. Sometimes with Neptune, we can lose dear people. We can lose someone we thought we can't live without. We can lose something we thought we can't live without. To God to show us that there is no higher thing than that everything is ephemeral, it's temporary. Only the intangibles are forever, even though we can't see them, so we have to have the faith. But people who are naturally spiritually inclined will just become more spiritually inclined. We will have magical moments. I've seen people have magical, life realigns in magical ways when Neptune is in their sign, if they have those spiritual Neptunian qualities already. If not, God will find a way to make you more compassionate, to humble you. This is the word for Neptune, to humble you, to want not to be first, but to serve. And for Aries, we want to be first. But now want to be first in serving, want to be first for the next 14 years in helping others, and without becoming naive, without being taken advantage of, without giving everything, because sometimes with Neptune is there, we just start giving and giving, or even if we see the person is taking advantage, no, it has to be with measure again, which Saturn will help us about. I'm not saying just leave your job and become someone working in Africa or someone going to Gaza. Or, I mean, yes, this is something that some of us can do, definitely. But it's in your everyday life that you do certain Neptunian things. You see a rubbish in front of your neighbor's house, you pick it up. You see an elderly woman living next to you, she needs some help. Do those things. This is Neptune. Or incorporate other Neptunian things. Live near the sea, travel more to faraway places that are unknown to you, not something familiar. Like I live in Bulgaria, Greece is next to me. I go 1 hour, I'm there, you know, same religion, same culture, same food. Or you go from one state to another. Neptune is like more far away, some islands, some another continent, overseas. Or do some charity work. This is fantastic. If you don't want those losses from Neptune, charity work or something, or do spiritual work. I discovered astrology with Neptune in my first house, spirituality, you know. Neptune rules your 12th house. In the first house, definitely spiritual matters, meditation. Maybe finally, as an Aries, I'll be able to meditate, because Neptune brings this more Zen energy to you. And in highest vibration brings ability to feel peace and love. This on the scale of consciousness, to feel the unconditional love at 500 points or even above 600. Some of you, maybe 1% of you, will get there. Others will just become a bit more humane, kind of loving, humble. If you're already like that, God will be protecting you. God will, it will be kind of magical developments. Of course, when Neptune passes exactly over your sun, moon, or ascendant, there can be this sense of mystical feelings, nirvana, very sensitivity, high sensitivity, very much. You might start seeing, feeling, hearing things that you've never done before. You might open up yourself to music much more intensely than, especially if your moon is in Aries. Oh my God, like music will become, you might feel it. You might even, a lot of Aries might align over the next 15 years to Neptunian careers, which is, again, it can be in charity, or it can be in the arts, it can be in spiritual themes or topics, so it can be in some idealistic direction, but something with the soul, or something with traveling oceans, foreign countries, or spiritualization, or pharmacy, or medical industry, or healing industry. Healing, spiritual industries, medical industries, pharma industries. Neptune is also petro and oil industries, you know, all of those things. All right, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's, yeah, it's like, don't get lost in the fog. If you have a high compass and moral, and always that is God, even when you feel that you're lost in the ocean and the waves are, just know God has a plan and is taking you where you're supposed to be. And add in Neptunian things in your life, add in music, add in romantic atmosphere, candles. As I said, Neptune can bring big romantic loves in someone's life. Love that it will be a soulmate connection, but sometimes it can bring someone you feel like a soulmate, and probably they are, but someone who bursts your bubble because you put all your idealization into them. You put all your, wow, they're perfect, they can't do wrong. Or even you see, and sometimes I had a friend, she had Neptune transiting over her sun, over her ascendant and Venus, because they were all close together, and she fell in love with someone unavailable, who was married, and she idealized him, but she says, oh, I know he's not perfect, but I just want to give him love, because he had also cancer, because I want him to feel happy and to recover. And the person actually recovered from cancer, became stronger. And then she left that person, because she says, like, I just had the need to uplift this person, and by being in an affair with him, but obviously it helped him, he recovered and whatever. I'm not saying you do this, I'm just giving you some funny stories of Neptune transits, how people can be very irrational in the eyes of others, but they can have their own they can have your own higher reasons for that. And so that you might feel like saving others, you might feel like helping others, and others might say, you're so stupid, they're using you or whatever. And you might see that even, and you say, doesn't matter. I feel like this urge to do it anyway, because you might have this, you would feel much more strongly soul-to-soul connection with people, not just any people. Because when Neptune is in your sign, people will come that you truly have past life karma with, that you truly have some soul connection and some important soul lessons to do. And it won't be constant for 14 years, unless you have 4 or 5 planets in Aries like me. Maybe in 7, 8 years, I'll be like, oh, I'm levitating here, or totally lost everything that I've ever had and been attached to. And who knows? You never know with Neptune. As long as you have this higher power, you hold on to. And if you're in film industry, in artistic creative industry, I've seen some of the biggest movie stars become from nobody, literally nobody, like Edward, whatever it was he played in those vampire movies. He was no one, and Neptune passed over, his son squared it, and bam, huge movie star. So if you're in such Neptunian careers, you can be big, big, big. You can become big during this time. If you're in more practical fields, you can feel a bit lost, demotivated, confused. That's why you need to incorporate other Neptunian things in your everyday life. If you're in corporate world or whatever, because Neptune really needs that. If it doesn't get it, it will distract you. It will dissolve this practicality of daily life. It will make you a bit confused. But Neptune can dissolve one career if it's over one sun, or spiritualize it, bring Neptunian elements to it, like starting to do something more Neptunian, like I said, healing, whatever. Or Neptune can, or seas, or ships, working on ships, working on holiday resorts, where it's faraway places as well. This is also Neptune, not just arts and spiritual stuff and healing. Neptune over moon, oftentimes people fall in love a lot. I've seen people give birth to children. I've seen that's when you feel the unconditional love and sacrificing yourself for another. I've seen sometimes losing their mother, sometimes really having such intuition that their spiritual psychic abilities open up. So the possibilities are so many. It's so Neptune over Sun, falling in love with a male figure, idealizing, changing careers. We said some idealist, not being sure where you're supposed to be, who you are anymore. And this period of 2-3 year crisis of identity, who you are, and then you emerge with a more spiritualized, refined identity, more humbled and aligned. Especially if you have a strong ego, Neptune really hits. If you have a weak ego, then you have to protect yourself a bit against predators, because then your ego barriers are even weaker. But you pass without being crushed, or you pass usually in much more gentle way through Neptune transits, people with lesser ego, because it's more aligned to their energy. Okay, take a little bit of a break and I'll continue. So remember, well, for the next 15 whatever years Neptune is in Aries, it won't be constant. It's more like a background noise or background peace that Neptune wants from you. Because Aries is this hectic sign that wants to do stuff. It will calm you down. It will make you more introspective. Generally, that's to enter more love into your life. Love towards yourself, love towards your near and dear ones. The highest principle: love yourself, love your neighbor and all other people, even your enemies, as you do yourself. There is this more feminine energy entering into you. But first, the next 3 years, you'll feel this Saturnian energy much more. We'll get to it when Saturn gets for the month we go. But overall, just remember, for many years ahead, Neptune wants to spiritualize you, to bring unconditional love for you. And Neptune transforms, and to teach you that nothing is ever lost. But Neptune teaches you by losing stuff that we're very attached to, and showing us that down the road we can find something else, someone else that will inspire in us the same love that we had before. So even if there's some losses sometimes with Neptune, it's only because we become too attached to them, and it's stopping us from moving. So we can see that divine love never dies. It transforms. It can come from one pet you have into another, from one job you thought you can't be without to another. It can, the love, its energy never goes away, just transmute. Love never disappears, just transmutes. And to trust in God, even if it gets foggy at times. But if you have this natural inclination, the spiritual inclination, this meditative state, this introspection, Neptune transit you can feel like you're in a magical fairy tale season of your life for years. It can feel like everything is wondrous. You can see everything with new eyes. You can see the magic, the fairies in everything. Some of you can even start seeing those magical worlds, the high vibrational worlds. Others can just have this feeling that they're in a movie, feeling that they're in a from black and white going into technicolor. This fullness of feeling, this, like, I've even seen people tell me after Neptune transit, first they were foggy and they were disconnected. And when Neptune transit passed over the exact degree of their sun, moon, or ascendant, it's like everything became much more technicolor, like other colors and feelings and emotions were added to them that they never thought possible. Depth of feeling. Sometimes people get scared of this depth of emotion and try to dull it down with substances or addictive behaviors. That's the dark side of Neptune. But if you keep yourself like that, is how I survived through my Neptune in the first house, through Aquarius. When it was, I always had this high ideal of God, that and it revealed deeper and deeper feelings and emotions and brought me out on the other side with much more colorful and magical life. So yeah, if maybe you come back to this many times, find it in the timestamps to listen what Neptune's energies are about, to keep the higher perspective so you don't get lost in the more daily confusion that sometimes Neptune can bring, especially when it's transiting exactly over the degrees of sun, moon, or ascendant. So if you're the first 2-3 degrees of Aries now, you'd feel it strongly. Now, what else is happening? So we ended with March, Venus retrograde, whatever, and then we enter into April, where things start lightening up from the 7th, the 12th of April. First, Mercury turns direct on the 7th of April in Pisces, in your 12th house, because it's moved back to Pisces. And then on the 12th of April, Venus turns direct at 24 degrees Pisces. So towards the end. So the April has this 12th house energy to you again. So maybe resolving, because the planet's turning direct, dissolving some emotional situation, some gaining clarity about some unclear issue, completing something and moving forward. Also maybe resolving some matters connected to foreign countries, to far away, to relocations to foreign places, or to foreign trips, or maybe some creative projects that are coming to an end, you're completing them or moving forward with them, or maybe some miscommunications and misunderstanding that were happening, or some delays, they stop being, they start moving forward, and they start moving ahead. So from the middle of April, things are not so, because Mercury, Venus retrograde till then were a bit unclear, or had to put extra efforts to fix something. And then from April, you start coming into your power, things start, and the sun is in your sign. You, especially from the middle of April, start feeling very empowered. You start feeling like things are settling down, like things are starting to move ahead. Maybe they can even help you improve your dream and sleep, because it's in the 12th house. Maybe the second part of April might be wonderful trips abroad as well, and so on. And yeah, the other thing is that in April, Saturn is conjunct with the South Node. We talked a lot about that, but there is a lot of activity here as well in your 12th house. So again, 12th house is work on your psyche, introspection, overcoming addictions, overcoming self-sabotaging behaviors, time alone, or time in different places than your everyday environment. It might be a foreign country, it might be meditative state, it might be in a bit of isolation, it might be in going to a spa, going to a hotel, you know, a different environment that this April energy holds for you. And it might be very spiritual energy with North Node and Saturn. And Saturn, North Node conjunct with Saturn asks us to do some hard work and gives us the passion, the energy to work towards some hard work connected to this 12th house. And of our subconscious, with our psychological, resolving psychological matters, past life issues, traumas that we haven't worked through. And if you've had some situation where you had to be hospitalized or retreat from the world, or you were sick a bit, from the middle of April, it starts improving, hopefully. And Saturn conjunct the North Node. It's interesting to see how it plays out in our second house. It's again around the same degree, 26 degree, where Venus and Mercury become direct. So there's a lot of 12th house energy in April. Interesting. Something, you'd leave something behind you. You'd let go of something because it's the energy of letting go. You'd proactively try and release things. And of course, it can be very imaginative people in imaginative field, creative field, healing field. So if you're doing any healing work, mental healing, psychological healing, they can be a big turnaround, big breakthrough with mental, with psychological, with physical health healing of any sorts. Or even breakthroughs by talking with a psychologist, with psychic, with astrologer, that helps you get to the bottom of your thing, or even some research breakthrough if you're doing some research, or mystical, spiritual knowledge that you have a breakthrough. Now, this is April. But of course, things start picking up, becoming good, because Mercury and Venus are turning direct in the middle of the month, and kind of a few days into April still. They move into your first house, will stay there. April, big part of May. So that feels good. It starts feeling good. But comes April, comes May, Saturn, towards the end of May, will enter Aries as well. Look at that. The end of April, Saturn enters Aries. You see Saturn for the last 2 years. It's been in your 12th house, completions, ending, karmics, resolutions, leaving things behind. That we said it's a big part of 2025. It's not like you fully start new beginning there. It dips for a little bit in Aries. So some Aries, especially the first 2-3 degrees born Aries again, they can have powerful new beginnings. New direction in life, new dumb, new body, new appearance if it's the ascendant, new path in life, they're building the foundations with the sun, even with career, some new direction, working on something very hard. But Saturn stays here in Aries just till September. So you have the end of May, so June, July, August, 3 months only. Mars, Saturn will be in Aries. And then it dips back into Pisces. So mostly we're still cleaning things in 2025 as Aries. Things are coming to an end, or we still might be a bit unclear about where things are headed when Saturn is in the 12th house. We just want to unburden ourselves from what has been. To quote a favorite politician of mine, unburden yourself with what has been. Well, Saturn is in the 12th house, because when it enters fully in 2026, and for some areas from the end of May, the early Aries, till September, there is a brand new program for Aries, and most other Aries will feel it in 2026. But let's talk about Saturn in your sign. What is it about? A new 30-year cycle is starting for Aries. It's kind of wiping out the slate while it's in the 12th, finishing the karma. That's why sometimes many endings happen when Saturn is in the 12th, finishing of old stuff. Sometimes it can feel as losses, but it's long overdue to end those things. When Saturn moves into the first house, you start building the foundation of the new. And some of you might not immediately get, the later born Aries might not get clarity, what is this new thing yet? They might have to wait to 26, 27 when Saturn transits over the Sun, Moon, or Ascendant later degrees. But you're going to start feeling like, some other energy is coming. Neptune already entered your sign from March, okay, let's say April. And Saturn, the end of April, is entering your sign. So you feel the winds of change. I said, even if you're later Aries, as I said, you're in the same room as those two planets already. You can feel like, wow, things will change in a big way for me. As I said, some Aries will play some very important role in the structures of society, in bringing this new spiritual impulses, manifesting them into real, tangible way into the world. But what does Saturn want? And this Saturn, you'll feel it. All Aries will feel it, not like Neptune. Neptune will take 14 years for some Aries to feel it, the later born. But Saturn to feel it full strength. But Saturn, over the next 2-3 years, all Aries will feel it. So it's asking you from now already, starting from May and into September, organize yourself. You know, Saturn almost like wants to prepare the path for Neptune, because Neptune will pass over the degrees, Saturn passes after that. And Saturn wants to, I talked about it, wants to streamline you, to cut off everything unnecessary that is bogging you down, to streamline, to make it simple. Saturn really likes to make something simple. You heard this expression, what is it? Minimalism. Minimalism is what Saturn wants from you. With the least amount, with survive, and wants to teach you that you're a survivor and can survive with as little as possible. I'm not talking only food and stuff, but that you become like a rock unto yourself. You become a strength that, you know, can survive any circumstances. And Aries is one sign of survival. But Saturn transiting through your first house, it has a bit different influence when it transits from Ascendant, Sun, or Moon. And as I said, only if you're the first 2 degrees, Saturn will transit your Ascendant, Sun, or Moon. But I'm telling you, for the whole next 2-3 years period, what the Saturn wants: structure, organization, trimming off the unnecessary. Saturn is represented by death with a sky. Sometimes there are literally deaths that happen around, very rare occasions, but still. Sometimes, but usually it's more like the death of the dead wood. You need to get rid of the dead wood, and with the scythe you chop whatever is not necessary, and you become ruthless in that. That's what the job of Saturn for the next 3 years is, to really to chop off the unnecessary, and so you have clean slate, so you can start building on top of it. And over the next 2-3 years, you'll start building a new you. If it's your ascendant, maybe a new physical body with the sun and moon as well, new structure. I've seen many people start working out, and especially because it's Aries. Aries wants action. Saturn rules muscles and weightlifting. One of the best remedies for Saturn in Aries is start weightlifting or some kind of a muscle strengthening exercises. But start physical exercise. I've seen people who start working out regularly when Saturn is transiting their sun sign or their ascendant sign, sometimes even the moon sign. They pass through this transit much easier. But also Saturn will show you what's broken and it's not working. If you've abused your body, Saturn shows the consequences of abusing your body when transiting over sun, moon, or ascendant. Oftentimes the immune system can weaken as well, because Saturn lowers the vibration there. That's why I think the video for Aries is one of the longest, because the biggest changes are happening for you guys. And again, we need to find ways to increase the vibration, because Saturn, the enemy of Saturn is the sun. So if Saturn lowers the vibration, sun raises them. Try to spend more time in the sun to keep your immune system high, vitamin D, natural vitamin D. Stop slathering yourself with creams and whatever against the sun, at least 15 days per day, minutes per day. Already start doing it with Saturn in the 12th house. When it moves into Aries, you need to have the strength and some strength exercise again to increase the immunity, to increase the muscles. The best thing of Saturn in Aries, strong muscles. This is the final result can be. But also, sun, hot water, Saturn makes you cold. colder, so colds, such kind of stiffening of bones, of sinews, of stiffens you. I had Saturn transiting through my ascendant recently. Oh my God, I was so stiff all the time a couple of years ago. And when it went away, it's kind of can restrict movement in some way. So again, it's good, some stretching exercises, hot water. If Saturn is cold and dry, water is warm, water is warm and hot, so you can counteract the influence of Saturn. Drink on an empty stomach every morning 2-3 glasses of warm hot water with some lemon as well, to get some of the sun in it as well, to counteract the energy of Saturn and such. And Saturn, though, has powerful ability to allow you to say no to things over the next 3 years. So you'll be much better. And Saturn in Aries is ruthless. It goes to an extreme. So you can go on an extreme health, whatever direction. And it can allow you to have a lot more self-control, which is good, because it's good to now set the boundaries. What is a no thing for you, and where you say no and things to stop, because after that, Neptune will be transiting for 15 years, whatever, over your sign, which dissolves boundaries. So it's good time now to build those boundaries. And then if some of those boundaries are too harsh, Neptune will soften them. But it's good to have to sort out your priorities now. What is important for you? What is right? What is wrong? Saturn is very moralistic planet as well. So you have to deal with moral questions of what is right and wrong. And you'll be your harshest teacher yourself. There might be some external authority figures for some of you, especially people that, because Saturn rules your 10th house of bosses, father figures, authority figures coming into your ascendant, and in the 11th house of mentors, of friends, or your first house, So 11th house is friends, your social circle, father figures, the 10th house. So there might be such figures that are more mature that enter your life. Now, more older people can be in your life for the next 3 years, such with more authority, with more experience, or people with high social standing, or friends that are older, or they can manifest somehow with a more critical behavior of Saturn. Like you can find that society is looking at you under, for the next 3 years, under magnifying glass. Anything wrong you do, with the ruler. So you have to be very straight-laced, straight jacket. Your reputation, your appearance, your actions will be scrutinized by people in power, by institutions, even sometimes by, bosses more. There might be a boss figure, but those ones are, even if they're harsh, because Saturn in Aries is harsh, even if they're a bit too unfair, demanding too much, too critical, or Saturn in Aries is not fair. It's in its fall, But you can withstand that. You're strong, you're Aries. And you're very stubborn as an Aries. Sometimes you need very tough teachers. And that's what Saturn will give this to you. But because it's in your own sign, for many of you, it can be your own personal authority, your own authority voice that is being harsh on you. But it's necessary to break the stubbornness of Aries. So, and to mobilize your energy, to be strict with yourself, to restrict on yourself a lot of stuff. And I remember I was telling you about Neptune. It's the opposite energy of Saturn. So you might feel, well, should I soften and be gentler and magical? Most areas, actually, Saturn is the first energy to focus on for the next 3 years, because Neptune will get to you. Neptune in the next 3 years will cover only the first 4 or 5 degrees of Aries. They'll feel the softening of Neptune as well. But the early Aries this year will start feeling Saturn, and I advise the later Aries to start implementing Saturnian energies in their life first and foremost, maybe with a bit of Neptunian. So the best combination Saturn-Neptune is strict spiritual discipline. So spiritual discipline might be, for example, giving yourself an hour to meditate every day, or giving yourself specific time to do some spiritual connection with nature. Neptune rules nature and the wild. It's not difficult spiritually. It might be more discipline to do art, to combine both Saturn and Neptune, being more disciplined to bring some fine art, something creative or more disciplined into healing modalities of some sort, more discipline into visualization. Saturn, Neptune together this year in your first house. The best way you can use it is because Neptune is the imagination, the power of the mind to create. It works. Neptune always works with images, and Saturn can help you discipline this imaginative streak of yours. And Saturn and Neptune's highest manifestation together is developing what Rudolf Steiner says, the witch consciousness, the imaginative consciousness, which once you develop it, able to really control your imagination and your visualization ability, you can start manifesting in reality. You know, those highest manifestations, Saturn, Neptune is like Babaji. Things of an object, apple, whoop, manifested. The power of the mind of Neptune to visualize is so powerful, and Saturn to crystallize it, to materialize it. This is the highest vibration of Saturn Mars, but Saturn Neptune. But I promise you, most of you are not going to start manifesting objects out of the blue. But while Saturn and Neptune are together, especially they joined together in July, but all the time from April till September, they're very close together in your first house. This is a time where you can create some ideal, some imagination of yours, some inspiration, which is Neptune in nature, some kind of a new vision, goal, ideal. You can crystallize it and materialize it this summer, starting from May, when Saturn enters Aries, from the end of May till September in particular. And then again from 2026, when Saturn and Neptune join again in Aries, you'd be able to, as an Aries, have some to train your imagination to manifest. So you have to use both, not just harsh, cold, practical steps. What should I do? Organize. No, you sit there and you think, what exactly do I want? Because it's new beginning for you, Saturn and Neptune in your first house. What is it I want? I want to imagine this reality for me. I want this and this and this practical material, what house, what spouse, whatever it is you want, how you want to be, your health, your appearance, whatever it's your priority, you will figure it out. I'm not the one who knows what is your priority. And you sit there and you visualize it. And once you visualize it, take action, Aries, and put it in practical on a material, Saturn. Put the vision board or start doing the first steps in some way this summer. This is for Aries. But Saturn wants this, we'll ask for discipline, for structure, for no nonsense anymore. You can't be distracting yourself. You can't be like postponing. Saturn will really mobilize you to, and if you're not doing it yourself, there will be an external force that does it, that pressures you to put you in a smaller box, to downsize, to cut off unnecessary things, so you can focus, so you can become more minimalistic, streamlined, so you can be more productive. That's why Saturn wants you to chop off those other distractions, those other indulgences. Saturn doesn't like indulgences. So deny yourself something. You see the theme of the 12th house and then Saturn in your first house with Neptune. There's always this energy of denying yourself something that is distracting you. Maybe it's social media, maybe it's, but you have the power and the strength to do it now because of a higher ideal, Neptune. Neptune is always there and you have more faith in that direction to do it. If you connect with God consciously, you have the faith of this new ideal to put the hard efforts of Saturn. This Spartan energy is coming. This Spartan and ascetic energy is coming to Aries. But Aries is the sign that's represented by a ram that's climbing up in arid rocks and areas where no one else can survive. So Aries is the sign best suited for, especially your sun in Aries, moon in Aries as well. They're tough, but a bit softer. Ascendant in Aries as well. They can survive in very tough circumstances. They're the ultimate survivor, with Saturn especially in their sign. They're like the Iron Man runner. Saturn in Aries for me is like extraordinary human effort that no one else can do, that can push one to the limits, but they do it. Iron Man energy. Those goats or those rams that you see, they're sitting on a straight rock on the ledge and they survive and there is no green, but they find food somehow. So you ultimately, you're going to make some miracle in your life through few resources that, even though they're limited resources when Saturn is around, or limited time resources, physical, whatever, because Saturn limits those. But in Aries, the warrior, even though Saturn is in fault there, it means it's more cruel. The energy feels more cruel, more for others. It will be, oh, it's impossible to do. There's no way, but you will be able to do it somehow. It's not going to be easy. You have to make the efforts, but when you think back on that period, you'll be like, how did I do that? It's like magically manifest, especially if you keep Neptune in mind, this faith in higher power. All right, so that's Mars in Aries. And of course, take care of your bones, not to break something in your head. Aries is the head, your teeth, the upper teeth. Aries rules the upper teeth, the head, you know. So this health conditions can be a blood as well, that you need to purify the blood if you can. Saturn, the head, Aries, the head, and so on. The bones, Saturn. Then in June, on the 9th of June, so Mars, May, Saturn moves into Aries. You can start seeing the new structures you have to do, the new ways you have to restrict yourself, or new topics you might have to organize, restructure yourself in some way. And even for your career, it may be some new career paths, some new long-term project that can change humanity, or business project that you are working hard on the next 2-3 years when Saturn enters your ascendant. And because Saturn rules your 10th house, or your sun or moon to a lesser degree, because Saturn rules your 10th house, it rules your 11th house from Aries, sun, moon, rising. So it does have the hard work towards more gains, towards more popularity, or towards some social economic goal that of spreading of knowledge or of business, or more efforts towards gain more followers or clients, or towards your career, or with institutions, authority figures. But all you have to be your own general. If you're not, there'll be a new general that appears to push you and tell you what to do. Oftentimes, Saturn over ascendant can be even pregnancies, giving birth. The person really has to organize themselves if they have a child and so on. And Saturn is to carry something heavy, burden. You know, that being pregnant is a burden, but that's another way it can play out. So don't freak out, or just taking on more responsibility of some sort, being more organized, waking up early, being more like Spartan-like. This is what Saturn will teach you, because after that, it will be only Neptune in Aries for a decade and a half. And the Spartan energies that you've built, you start softening after that, and allowing things to happen more spontaneously, more naturally. While the first 3 years from now on, from May, the end of May of 2025, and especially 26, 27, 2026, 2027, you have to be Spartan-like. You'd have to be this, to deny yourself, to be strict on you, and you have the energy to do it. In June, we have Jupiter on the 9th entering in Cancer, which means that the first 5 months, Jupiter is in your 3rd house, Aries. So you can, till June, expand your circle of people, even though with a lot of 12th house energy that we have, there's also this need to withdraw, to have a long time, to shed stuff, but you're also welcoming some new people in your life. They can be in, if you're traveling somewhere, it's good till June the 9th, you know, when Jupiter is in your 3rd house, or when Mercury and Venus are retrograde in March. If you're traveling, maybe travel to places you've been to before, but the rest of the time, short trips can abound, can come easy to you, and long trips, because Jupiter aspects the 9th house. Your mind is bright, like Jupiter is now is in my 3rd house, and I've been able to communicate things much easier, because Jupiter, wherever it passes, makes things come naturally to you. Communications, to improve your communications, to improve if you have websites, if you have businesses that to connect with clients, to improve, to buy better laptops, better cars, better transportation systems, better equipments of any sort is the 3rd house. Also, to expand your social presence, social media presence, if you want in any way to do great marketing campaign. Third house is also commercial in transactions of any sorts are good. Sales, trades, buys, purchases are usually quite good. Business tends to go well when Jupiter is in the third house, especially from ascendant, maybe from sun and moon to a lesser degree, but still you'd feel it. It's also a chance to improve relationships with siblings, a chance to improve relationships with good stuff to happen with siblings, with mates, with teammates. I'm noticing that I'm meeting third house is people you meet in your everyday environment. And I normally don't meet much people in my everyday environment except through work. But since Jupiter entered my third house and till the middle of next year, pretty much 2025, Jupiter will be there, I've been connecting more effortlessly. I'll just go pick up the kids from school and then would end up hanging out with 3 or 4 mothers and sitting in the center, having a cocktail with the kids. And just on my local environment, I connected with so much more people than I normally do. And I'm really enjoying it. I don't normally enjoy such random social interactions. And now it has been coming great. I found a little circle here, friends. And so I'm telling that this is all things that you can keep developing and not just business, because third house is a lot to do with business, communications, media marketing, connecting with clients, putting your message out there, and also being prolific in any media work. Jupiter can expand that. Media work, writing, speaking projects, coding projects, administrative project, being prolific. I've been writing like crazy. I'm doing this software, which is also third house, where every day I need to write text and record videos for the software and arrange it and whatever. So this is how it's been playing out for me. You can adjust it and see how it fits in your life, but such things, definitely, I'm feeling it from the sun for sure. And I'm really enjoying socializing on a more everyday level as well. But whenever we sit up, the mothers, we always end up talking about Jupiterian things, because that's what is in our third house now. Oh, the future of the world, spirituality, morality, and such matters. The third house, as I said, short travels. We've been doing a lot of short travels. It's good for movement if you want to move. And remember also Mars is in your fourth house, a place of living, and till April, till the end of April. So you might be changing something here, and Jupiter is in the third house of actual physical moving and travel. So it's auspicious for such events. If you want to buy a new car, is also Jupiter in the third house. But then from June the 9th, Jupiter enters our fourth house. By then, Mars is somewhere else. So if there was some, and it will stay there till June, July 2026 for a whole year. So socially, you're still expanding till the middle of the year, but from June, Jupiter enters your fourth house, and the focus now becomes home and family. You see, Mars also activated the first 3 months of the year for home and family, but with Mars energy. Mars is fallen in Cancer, so it's a bit harder. Maybe it requires more efforts, more stressful, psychologically, emotionally stressful. Maybe there was some confrontations with parents, father figure. Now, when Jupiter enters Cancer, where it's exalted, its best position, it's a chance to heal relationship with parents. If your parents were not doing well in health, or they had some problems, Jupiter starts healing it. It frees you from responsibilities, family ones that are too burdensome. It can help you sell or buy land at the right price, a good quality land. If Jupiter is there, if you're trying to buy land, you'll probably find out the most fertile land. If you're trying to start a garden, you have really green fingers. If you're trying to buy property, you'd probably, remember I had an Aries friend 12 years ago when Jupiter entered the fourth house from her sun in Aries. They bought a beautiful house in London, in Park, in not Hyde Park, but Regent's Park. It was like a mansion. And yeah, Jupiter brought her the dream home for her. And they started a family. She became a mother during that year as well. So this is another way it can manifest, because it's a very fertile sign in Cancer, in the fourth house of motherhood, parenting. from the second part of the year, from June. Expand home, find home, expand already existing one, improve relationships with parents, improve the family harmony. So a lot of your strength, while all those planets are here in Aries, Saturn, Neptune, will come from your family, from your loved one, the second part of the year. There'll be a lot of healing. And then remember, Saturn and Neptune will move back into Pisces, and Jupiter will really help the closing of the cleaning of the old feelings, cleaning of the attachments to the past, which it's trine from the fourth house, healing of the ancestral pain and wounding, because the fourth house is the ancestors and Jupiter heals it great. I just had, when Jupiter was in Taurus, which is not very strong, it was in my fourth house from ascendant. When it's in Cancer, it's 10 times stronger in a positive way. But it felt such healing time. I loved being at home. I felt so attached. We moved again into we did some renovations and they went good, and I moved back to my country of origin. I just felt so good at home, and there is this warmth here on top of my stomach when Jupiter transits the fourth house, and I can't wait for it to go into the fourth from my son as well, because there is always this more comfort and emotional satisfaction and happiness that comes. Sometimes it's very subtle, even if you don't buy property or relocate or something or start a family or become a parent, you just feel content and happy, because the fourth house, the house of emotional happiness, and Jupiter there in Cancer, it's just going to help do a lot of healing from past and release from emotional pain. But again, if you want to relocate, find a property, fantastic time, start a family, your nurturing abilities will increase. Your mama bear, no, in a more gentle way. So there is the Cancer rules kind of like the stomach, heart chakra area, this warmth there that comes, lots of healing. All right, so that's where Jupiter will be helping you from the middle of 2025 onwards. I think it can also help with career because it's looking at the opposite house. So that's as well good, but a lot of emotional release and healing. And in June as well, we're going to have Jupiter square Saturn on the 15th. The last Jupiter-Saturn square from Saturn from your first house, Jupiter from the fourth house. Some important decision might be taken in June, but it's like a closing thing. It's only one time. There might be some tension here between your needs and the family needs, or some important decision you have to make, some responsibilities about family, place of living, or your emotional state in a sense. But yeah, there's some important decision connected to your personal life and your own, might be taken in June. Especially if your sun, moon, or ascendant in the first 1 or 2 or 3 degrees. Again, you're the ones that you feel it very intensely. But somehow Jupiter is helping you, despite of the square. Even though if it's a tough decision, it's helping you because it's softening Saturn's influence. Okay, then July, big change. Uranus from Taurus, where it's been for the last 7 years. From your second house, where for some of you, maybe it revolutionized or changed how you make money. For me, it became all very digital. Actually, as an Aries, the moment you're in the center Taurus, my income raised a lot. It's not necessarily it was focused everyone, but it was very inconsistent when Uranus is in Taurus in your second house. Income I became more independent. A lot of Aries people, strong Aries, might have become more independent, not depending on a salary, like freelancing and so on, because Uranus wants to give this independence, but also it's not consistent always, the income. There might have been a lot of ups and downs, because for me, like 1 month I would make for 4 months money, then the next month I would make 1/4 or 1/5 of what I did. So it's been like that, but consistently higher, thankfully. Now Uranus leaves our second house, and my eating habits have been so inconsistent. That's like one day I eat, another day I don't eat, Then 3 days I'll stop myself, then I don't eat at all. This is this, instability of Uranus, but Uranus feels much happier in Gemini. It's much more aligned to its energy. Taurus is static, Uranus changes all the time. You don't want all the time changes in your financial security. You don't want all the time changes in your security and stability, and changes with your family. Second house is the family. We feel like doing so many changes with the family. When Uranus enters Gemini on the 7th of July, only till November the 7th, so July till August, August till September, September till October, October till for 4 months, Uranus will dip into your third house, Aries, and you'll see the big shift there. You start noticing. Again, the first 3 degrees of Aries, 2-3 degrees, will feel it, which is very good because Uranus is going to help take off the tension from Saturn in Aries in the first 2-3 degrees and Neptune there. So there's going to be help from friends, from example. There's going to be help from you learning, reading something that opens your mind to those new beginnings you're supposed to start. There'll be new sudden opportunities and chances that you are not aware of to help you in some direction, maybe incorporating new technologies, maybe incorporating new wisdom and knowledge. But let's talk generally about Uranus in your third house. It's going to stay there. It dips back in November, leaves your third house, comes back into your second house again for one last revisit. But it comes back in 2026 full force, but you're already going to feel it. Aries is going to resonate a lot because Uranus really raises its vibration and the speed of reality when it goes into Gemini, and Aries vibes well with them, even though Saturn is asking them to slow down a bit. But you can really speed up in third house matters, your mind. First, Jupiter was in Gemini for a year, so it's kind of honed your speaking abilities, gave you the right connections. Now Uranus will really ramp up this process. It can become like 7-8 year period where there is a lot of stimulation from your environment, new people entering, leaving, coming, new people that are very different than you've had before. Because you see, Uranus is mostly affecting the second house, a third house, which is people you're surrounded to. So for some of you already from 2025, there might be a change of social circle. There might be a change, who knows, because Jupiter is in your fourth house. Some of you might relocate. They might start different new beginning in their family and home. Uranus here is like almost like the people you're surrounded with. They'll become more interesting, more like-minded. They might become more unusual than you've had. But there is a sense of camaraderie. But of course, Uranus can disconnect you from people as well, who are from the past, who've played out their role. There can be some kind of more inconsistent relationships with brothers and sisters from July onwards for a few months, and that full on from 2026, where there's like they're at a bigger distance or whatever, or some disruption, or some really big renewal in their life, some big change that happens in the life of your brothers, sisters. But your social environment changes in some way. I'm not sure if it's going to happen immediately from 2026. If it does, it's sometime from July till November. Change of your social environment, the new people entering, new place to study, new skills. Oh, this is so wonderful. When Uranus enters the third house, you feel invigorated to learn new things. You feel invigorated. I had Uranus in my third house from ascendant when it was in Aries. I learned so many things. This is when those 7-8 years, I learned how to do business. I learned how to do videos on YouTube, how to edit them, how to do marketing. And you learn very fast with Mercury in the third house, especially Mercury in Gemini. And that's why I think you'll be on the leading edge for many years ahead, Aries. First of all, because the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is epochal and happening in your sign, so you'd be like, you'd have those ideas, those new ideas that need to be manifested into reality. They come to Aries people or people with strong Aries. They come, but then Uranus here for the next 7 years will give you also the tool sets and the tool skills with which you have to learn, and they're especially digitally oriented. It is Uranus. Well, it can be, but something that's very new to you. But there is a lot of this new technologies, that skills connected to that, skills to markets, to skills connected to communication and so on, online, internet, such kind of stuff, that you might be able to spread those new ideas, new beginnings that's coming to you. So I highly recommend anything Uranian. Learn AI, learn making websites, learn marketing strategies, learn anything third house Uranian that connects large groups of people, or that does it through participation in large groups of people, Uranus, to spread ideas and to do the business and the transactions. So a lot of new skills, first of all, Uranus in Gemini for the next 7 years for you. And they usually, you learn them quickly, fast with Gemini, without problem. A lot of new interests can spark your mind. You might become very interested in everyday affairs, news, what's happening. Your mind might be a bit on overload. Very fast mind. You might even notice yourself, you speed up your talking, and almost like you have solutions. You ask a question and you know the answer without getting logically there, because Uranus is download information in a flashlight. Some of you might feel like your brain speeds up so quickly that you don't follow the logical steps, you just jump to the conclusion, which is another danger of Uranus, though, in the third house, that you speak out before you think, and that you say some stuff that you regret later, foot in mouth syndrome, which is what Sagittarians have. You know why they have it? Because Aquarius, the natural ruler of the third house of communication, is Aquarius, the planet that the Uranus rules Aquarius. So for you now, you'd appear for 7-8 years this Sagittarius syndrome, that you blurt out stuff, might be blunt. Not that Aries don't do it already, but very original mind, very fast, witty mind as well. A lot of communications through social media and so on, a lot of electronic kind of communication, but it can be good time for the next 7-8 years to write a book, electronic book, to not only electronic, why not? Third house is writing books, is making videos, and you'll be very prolific. Uranus in Gemini is like Speedy Gonzalez on speed. Imagine any communications, writing, speaking. It can give a lot of trips, but you know, the energy of the third house is moving, just like the brain is like a monkey, jumps from here to here. Uranus can help you multitask, and that's why Uranus loves being in the third house. In the second house, you want stability there for your family, for your finances, you know, for how you eat. In the third house, which is short trips, which is communications, which is business interactions, yeah, it can always stimulate the mind, but that's exactly the energy there. So a lot of short trips, suddenly out of the blue, oh, you have to go somewhere, gish, 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 you know. And then those trips might be connected, because Uranus rules Aquarius, might be connected to socializing because of friendships, with traveling more with friends, short trips, meeting up on a daily basis with more friends, and more interactions with friends. 11th house is also long-term goals or gains, financial gains. Because of that, you might do some short trips or media work or communications and so on. This is Uranus in the third house. Of course, there might be some disruptions. That's the negative energy, especially if you have planets in Sagittarius, in Virgo, in Pisces. If you're an Aries and Uranus squares them, there might be some disruptions in communications, disruptions in your relationships with relatives and siblings, being cut out and cut off, or long distance friendships where you don't see them and it's on and off, or with your siblings, or where disruptions in your educational processes. Even though with Uranus in third house, you really want to learn new stuff, but there might be disruption of a conventional types of studies to learn something new. There might be some breakages and sudden things with communication devices. If Uranus is making hard aspect over the next 7 years, if you have planets in, as I said, Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, they can be like suddenly cutting off connection with someone, internet problems, transportation disruptions here and there, because that's the disruptive, the tower of Uranus, break everything down and so on. But usually Uranus is going to be helping you because it's making a sextile to Aries. So I think it's very positive. Your brain will get you out of so many, your quick thinking and your social environment and circle support group will get you out of many situations and help you out with them. And of course, July is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in your sign. I talked a lot about it. I rushed ahead of it, but as I said, the manifestation, the visualization, putting it into reality is within, it's not full conjunction, but it's at 2 degrees Aries. I talked a lot about it. This is happening in July. And then on the 18th of July, Mercury is going retrograde in Leo, from 15 Leo till 4 Leo. So the last 10 days of July or the last 12 days of July, Mercury is retrograde in your 5th house Aries. Maybe an old love will appear. You'll hear from someone. That's what usually happens to me when Mercury retrogrades in Aries. Or maybe you'll rethink your love life. You'll have to have some clarifying conversations with your romantic partner or marriage partner. Maybe you'll revisit some old places and holiday places that you like, because 5th house is about having fun, what you enjoy, parties, leisure time, going on holidays, revisit some old places, you know, that you liked. This the second part of July. Maybe you revisit and have fun times with people from before. Maybe as well some creative project will need to be revised. And this continues till the 11th of August, from the 18th of July till 11th of August, about 20 days, 20 so days. And 5th house is, of course, your children. There might be something that you need to correct there. This usually summer holiday, doing things together with them, putting more efforts to them, and might be a bit of a disruption of your plans with children. Maybe you imagine it's going to be one way, but they don't have a routine, so the routine is changed or something, some kind of juggling around with kids, or creative project that you're working extra on, or maybe it gets put on hold and you need to redo it, or you need to, it's delayed, the working on it, but maybe you see it from an alternative perspective. And again, with retrograde planet, if you have to do something, the more efforts you put more efforts. It's not as easy, but the final result is 3 times better. So it might, if you had some important clarifying conversations with a loved one, romantic partner, it might take your romantic relationship to another level. Okay. But also some plans for holidays and stuff might be a bit disrupted with Mercury retrograde, especially if it's new places you've never been to. And in August the 11th, Mercury turns direct. So things start going according to plan, settles down, is not as, but Mercury retrograde in Leo is trining Aries. You can do a lot of very good Mercury thing for your business, where you kind of Mercury retrograde when it's trining your sun, moon, or ascendant. It's usually very productive time for business. You're arranging something in your work or business. You're in your everyday life, you're rearranging something. And then when it moves forward from the middle of August, the 11th of August, you're like, ooh, done a good job. Look at this, you know, I did a really good job here. I got a lot done, kind of. And then in September, from the 1st of September, we have Saturn going back to your 12th house. We're going to revisit those 12th house, self-sabotaging behaviors, addictions, unfinished business from the past for one last time. This year, till the end of the year, Saturn stays there, completing something you haven't finished, maybe working on something connected to faraway places, living there, documents, papers connected to that as well. And September, so everything 12th house Saturn comes back again things, you know, everything that we talked about. And then September, we have the next eclipses. The first one is the lunar eclipse on the 7th of September, which is at 15 degrees Pisces. It's trine Jupiter. So it's the moon here with Saturn, but Saturn is the eclipse a bit further. So again, you see, September, we come back to those 12th house, something culminating, completing, coming to an end, seeing, discovering some secrets, finding out some private information, discovering something about your past, about past lifetimes, or some psychological mental health realignment, because the 12th house rules the mental. Sometimes our mental health can suffer a little bit with eclipses in the 12th house, but it's like readjusting of the layers. Sometimes there is a bit of a depressive streak with Saturn in the 12th house, even though I haven't felt it from the sun so much. Knock on wood, it's been bad, good, you know, it's been good. But there is this kind of like working on your subconscious, working on your mental health, and you can have a breakthrough with this eclipse there. Or any themes connected to foreign countries, hospitalizations, faraway places, and so on can crop up around September as well. Letting go of the old, releasing old habits, and so on. Then the other eclipse is solar eclipse. The moon gets to here on the 21st of September. It's at 29 degrees Virgo. It's in your 6th house, and it's with the South Node. So it's new beginnings eclipse, 21st of September, that will affect you for the next 6 months, which is about new beginnings with health habits. You see how it is connected. New beginnings with health habits. It might be triggered by crisis sometimes, but it's pushing you in a new direction. It might be new directions connected to work, like a new project coming up, or a new daily routine that you instigate, but it's something new. And because it's with the South Node, it requires some kind of you giving up something, sacrificing something, letting go of some attachment, maybe letting go of attachment to an old job or project or employee, so you can allow a new one to enter that is more aligned. The eclipses want something that is more aligned to your destiny. In October, we have Neptune back in Pisces again from Aries into Pisces. So Neptune and Saturn will be very close again. October, November, December, this Neptune-Saturn energy in the 12th house that we talked a lot about at the beginning when I started talking about Saturn and Neptune in the 12th house, it's coming back powerfully for you. And it's helping you. Watch from February, I think, or January month, when I talked a lot about Saturn, Neptune, and the South Node in your 12th house. It's coming back the same energy. And November, Uranus goes back into Taurus. So the topics of Uranus in the 2nd house come back from the 7th of November till sometime in the beginning of 2026, when it fully, after 26, all of those fully enter into those signs. And then again in November, the last thing that happens is Mercury goes retrograde for the last time this year on the 9th of November till the 29th of November. Mercury goes retrograde from 6 degrees Sagittarius to 20 degrees Scorpio. So you might be revising some papers or documents for legal matters, for foreign stay, visas, passports, and so on. Or you might be revising some higher knowledge, or revising the direction of your higher studies and education for some of you, or maybe preparing or doing extra work on some teaching or some project connected to travel, but it's good because, you know, it's making a trine to Aries. You can be very productive again, fix something, edit, but there might be some faraway travels in this period, November. There might be, you have to be a bit careful unless you're going to a place that's familiar to you, you've known from before. Otherwise, there might be some complications and things not going according to plan fully, but it might play out better than you even planned it. It's just there is surprises there. And Mercury retrograde in your 8th house the last 10 degrees of Scorpio, it can also be doing something about taxes, revising something about inheritances, insurances, working with such papers of inheritance and so on, or mutual finances where you re-budget with your partner, where you have to prioritize where the money goes, where there's some realignment of your finances, especially mutual finances, where you revise, rebudget, or move some of your stock investments, or change something there, or rethink your approach there in some way. And of course, 8th houses can be about finding secrets, examining more occult topics, delving deep into astrology, into psychology, delving deep into the psyche of humans. And yeah, that's a lot about that. And also 8th house is maybe banks, taking something from bank, like a mortgage or whatever that you might have to be arranging, partly November, even into December as well. When Mercury turns direct at the end of November, which is on the 29th of November, things start, if there were any complications with this 9th house matters, either travels or document, or 8th house, insurances, inheritances, taxes, mutual finances, mortgages, they start getting, mutual finances, like with your partner, who gives how much, whatever. It starts getting resolved from the end of November. There you go. And December is pretty much a peaceful month. Oh yeah, November, last thing is Jupiter makes trine to Saturn. The first trine till now, for a year, they're making squares. Now in November, they make a trine on the 17th of November. Fantastic for anything to do with home, real estate, anything to do to releasing something from the past, healing psychologically, emotionally, really realigns here, really realigns perfectly. That especially more private life, or your subconscious, in your internal world, it's really helping. So this is over the 12 months. Remember, the most important things to keep coming back to is Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries. You can keep coming back to this video for years ahead. Uranus changing sign in Gemini, what to expect. Jupiter changing, Jupiter being in Gemini. So always focus the most on Saturn. So mostly Saturn is in your 12th house this year, a little bit into the first, we talked about it. Jupiter is in your third, and half the time into your 4th house. These are the two most important to focus on the nodes, because that's where the eclipses happen, and usually quick fated events. While Uranus and Neptune, they change signs, but to feel the influence, you usually realize the influence by the time they finish 10, 15 years from now, and you turn back and you're like, okay, it's like a background noise. But I wanted to tell you that Uranus, for the next 5-6 years, will be trine Neptune, the sextile Neptune, and trine Pluto. They'll be holding, and even Saturn next 2025 and 2026, this beautiful shape till 2028, 2029. So no matter what's happening in your life, the three planets which symbolize Uranus is divine wisdom, Neptune is divine love, Pluto is divine will. They're aligned. When the three planets of the higher principles of divine power, not human, that's a divine level, when they're aligned, God is looking out for us. God is protecting the all changes that are happening, even though they will be big, even though Saturn, Neptune is not easy energy. It's at the peak of this holding divine space for us. The archangelic hierarchy is connected to wisdom. The archangelic hierarchy is connected to will. They're the most powerful, which is Pluto, and the archangelic hierarchy is connected to love. These are the cherubims. Each one has a name: cherubims, seraphims. They're aligned, they're holding space for the earth in a perfect alignment. And for you, because the peak of this figure, which is represented like a figure with two wings, like an angel, is in Aries. So your pivotal figure, Aries, for this decade till the end, no matter what big changes are happening. I know a lot of you are scared from Saturn and Neptune in our sign, but till the end, at least, of this of till 2030, Uranus is holding, Neptune is holding the sextiles. So divine powers, and especially in 2025, this figure is perfect. It's protecting you. It's really getting you help from this 11th house, from Uranus, from Neptune, to fulfill with wisdom and with willpower some new ideals, some new beginning in your life that can help not only you, but the whole world. That can help shift your energy, putting you to a very different vibration, very different expression of your life, very different mission. And you have the divine support of divine wisdom that can manifest through friends or through people in your environment, that can manifest through the right connection, because it's Uranus and Neptune are, Uranus and Pluto are in houses of those, your support, like those social people, whether it's siblings, whether it's relatives, whether it's your social environment, whether it's people in your life that will appear, who will help you fulfill this mission, the right associates, the right mentors, the right, they will align with you to fulfill this new beginnings you have to do with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and to achieve something on another level. So you'll have the support, you'll have the wisdom, you'll have the willpower. Look at it from others as well, and you'll be attracting the right people at the right time to do this hard mission of Saturn and Neptune in Aries, to give birth. Remember this, that I gave you the image, Saturn in Aries is harsh. It's like this goat or ram on a sharp, high mountain, sitting right on a straight wall and trying to, with no food, nothing, desert, a mountainous area. It's a very difficult task, but only Aries people can do it. And when Saturn is in their sign, whatever is required from you, you will do it with flying colors. May you be blessed, Aries, and may you help not just yourself, but the whole world ahead.